Hear the noise, yeah, the mess we make. Machine Bun Kelly get caught in the fake. Facts and logic with a twist of chest. Strip it down to truth, yeah, forget the rest. Humor blows the lies right out of the park. Look beyond the shadows that set the dark. Sparks of laughter fire up the night, bringing clarity when they blur the fight. Cut through the chaos, yeah, the tangled lies. Fun Kelly with a set of clear eyes. Truths and jokes gonna rock this show. Step into light where the real facts flow. Step into the light.
All right. Well, hey, that's my new song, and I got my new look. So the Pun Show is we're taking steps, we're going, we're advancing, we're improving. My goal is just to start doing it and make one improvement a day, and so I think we're getting somewhere. I got my new little brick background there, and I'm using StreamYard now to just live stream it, and so hey. I feel like we're making some progress here, and I'll just keep trying to improve things one at a time. And who knows? Maybe someday this will actually be a professional quality video. But I don't. I'm just figuring all this stuff as I go along. So right now, I just hope that this is actually working. And I'm not wasting my time, but we'll find out. So today I wanted to talk about a litany of lies. This is the Republicans and Trump in particular, and J.D. Vance. They have gotten off to a whole new level of just lying about everything, and we're not even talking about just lying about stupid things. We're talking about things that these lies are potentially going to get people killed. Either even possibly their own supporters. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is just the sheer number of lies about FEMA that are going on, and I'm going to have a whiteboard video coming out later today that'll explain how FEMA and the budgeting process works in more detail. But I think there is a real misunderstanding from the right, and I think I think some of them know that the difference, but they're doing it anyway because they want their constituents to be confused, and that can end up, in some cases, sadly, getting them killed. So let me explain what I mean by that. Okay, first of all, there's all this confusion over the budgeting process and how they're saying that FEMA is taking money that should be going to disaster relief, and they're putting that in a different place, and they're spending it on migrants instead of on disaster relief. And this is like a complete misunderstanding and misrepresentation of how the budgeting process works. Let me explain what I mean by that. Let's look at what they're saying first. Okay, so what they're saying is it suggests that FEMA gets allocated a certain amount of money, and some of it is for disaster relief, and some of it is supposed to go to this other program for migrants, and it's kind of up to FEMA to decide who gets what money. But that is not true. That's not accurate. What it is that FEMA gets, okay, well, the way the whole budgeting process for everyone in the country works is that you ask the federal government for money. So, like, if you have a grant for a college, for research, or for your farm subsidy or whatever, every single person that requests government or wants money from the government has to request it, and they request it through whichever branch of the government they receive it. And then those branches, they collect all the different requests and they compile all of those together, and then all the branches get compiled together, and then it becomes the president goes over it, and looks at it, and then he decides how to prioritize things in his recommended budget, and then he gives that to Congress. And then Congress goes through and they allocate all of those funds, but they don't just go yes, no. They don't just look at like FEMA and say that's too much money for FEMA. They break it back down into various committees, and then those committees break it into subcommittees. And so the subcommittees will look at not just FEMA, but they'll look at all the different municipalities, for instance, and decide who gets what based on certain needs. Then the subcommittee votes to approve or negotiate until they get to where they approve each particular aspect of the budget, and then the committees combine those things, and then the whole Chamber of Commerce decides, okay, or the whole Chamber of Congress, because they do this in both the Senate and the House. And so both chambers, they'll say, okay, this is our version of the budget. And then, so they'll both approve of something, and usually they're not exactly the same. So that has to go through a process called reconciliation, where the two chambers of Congress negotiate, and they come up with, okay, this is our final budget. Then they vote on it and they approve it, and then they give it back to the president. And if the president is like, this is too different than what I gave you, then the president can still veto it, or he can sign it. So there is like a huge process that this budgeting goes through, and it's not just like done in lump sums. It's done in like very intricate detail. And to give you an idea, so there are two separate programs. There's more than two programs from FEMA, but the two that are in question here, there's one called the Shelter and Services Program, and there's the Disaster Relief Program. The Shelter and Services Program is like, they were allocated $640 million this year. Okay, so how did they get to that $640 million? They went through every single request. So whether it's like, I think San Antonio, for instance, got $3 million. And then there's like a charity in Maine that got like $280,000. So how did they decide who's going to get how much money? Well, for every single migrant, they have an alien ID number. Okay. And so to get approval for the funds, they have the municipality or the nonprofit has to have a list of all the alien IDs of these immigrants that they're taking care of. And here's the thing: is it's by law, they have these asylum seekers have to be taken care of, and people can get into the weeds about whether or not they should be seeking asylum, and most of the people that do that have no idea what the process is like. They really don't, and they're just, oh, they're all fake. And it's like, just shut up, because you don't know. Like you're just saying things. You don't know things. And like there's a very specific process, and if you really want to speed up the process and you're really worried about how long they're here, then add more asylum seekers, like the border bill your buddies in Congress just walked away from, because that's the process. There's a legal, if somebody comes here and requests asylum, they get to go through, as long as they prove they have a minimal amount of credibility, which they do have to do, and they're not criminals, then they get to go through this process. That's just, sorry, that's our law. If you don't like the law, change the law, but that's the law. And you can't get mad at the executive branch for enforcing the law that Congress passed. That's what it's supposed to do. If Congress doesn't like the law, Congress has to change the law. So anyway, you get these migrants, these asylum seekers, and the people get confused too about what their status is. Okay, there is a difference between legal and documented and illegal. Okay, and undocumented. Documented means that you came here with like a visa or a work visa. You had documents that allowed you to enter the country. Okay, and with those documents, a lot of people, they're allowed to work. Asylum seekers, even if they entered illegally, according to the actual law, it says even regardless of legal status, you can, request asylum. So even if you came here illegally, once you set the process of asylum into motion, you are here legally. The government knows you're here. The government has given you permission to be here. You are here 100% legally. Asylum is a legal process. But once you but you still are not documented, so you can't work. All right. So these people have to eat, they have to sleep, they have to have like shelter, right? So the government allocates money for every alien ID number of these asylum seekers so that they can eat and not die. So then all of those are compiled together by these various agencies and municipalities, and all of those go to this budget process, and a total sum of money is arrived at, and then usually there's like a sort of a rounding that occurs, and like an extra like 10% or whatever for virtually every process. Like just because things always end up going over. That's just, anybody who's ever had work done on their house knows that. That's not a government thing. That's just a reality thing. Okay. So this budget that Congress passed now, and it's all gone, or it's all gone through the steps it needs, and now it's the executive branch's job to spend that money according to the way Congress told it to, right? So it is not Biden decided to take this $640 million and spend it over here instead of there. No, he spent it where Congress told him to. And he spent the other money where Congress told him to. And you can get mad about Ukraine. And the Democrats, like they want to give money to Ukraine. Well, but you can't get mad at Biden. Congress told him to. And, they're for all your, mamby-pambying about why Ukraine shouldn't be, and, we shouldn't help Ukraine. This is what we live in, a republic. Remember, that's what you're always reminding us of. Well, the republic works that way. Sometimes you don't get your way. Sometimes the other side gets their way. And so, tough titties. So this is what happened. If we're going to be talking about a legal process here, then we've got to talk about the legal process. We can't talk about what your, like what somebody's opinions might be on whether the process should work that way. It does work that way. So that's just, that's it. So that's just part of it, is that they're trying to make it seem like Biden is giving this money to migrants instead of Americans. And this is kind of an evil, insidious lie, because it villainizes the asylum seekers, and there's another side to that is now you have people that are actually affected by the storms that are hearing all these negative reports. And what'll happen is like they'll get, like 5 minutes of cell service or something like that, and they'll see on Facebook, they'll see this one thing, and they'll believe it. And this is the people on the ground, the FEMA people on the ground, and the local police, the actual people that are actually trying to help on the ground are finding out that they'll hear, okay, this person needs help, and then they'll go to help them, and they're not there anymore because that person had gotten access to bad information about how nobody was coming to help, so they left. And now nobody knows where they are, and this happens over and over again. And so you've got people that are on the ground saying, please, please stop spreading this. And over 200 people have died already. We don't know if any or how many of those may have died because they got bad information. So there's a real possibility that some of these Republicans are literally killing their own constituents just to make a partisan political point. That's a complete lie. It's not even like, well, it might be partisan, but it's true, but it's not true, which makes it even more partisan, makes it even more evil. Like, it seems like I care more about the lives of MAGA than MAGAs do. Because if MAGAs cared about their own lives, why would they be spreading and repeating this information, which literally could be getting MAGA's killed? It's just like with the vaccine all over again. And, they'll run victory laps around like, oh, yeah. See, the vaccines. Yes, they did. You're just too stupid to ever figure it out. And, anyway. Then there's the whole thing about the $750 that, they're trying to make it sound like the $750 is all they'll ever get. And it's all because of Biden. Well, again, Congress allocates the funds. Congress decided that it's $750. And the $750 is not meant to replace your home. $750 is meant to pay your hotel bill and help pay for your food for, the few days that you might, need to be, have somewhere to stay. So this is part of a different fund. That's not money that could have gone to migrants or didn't go to migrants, or it's a different fund. This is all part of the disaster relief fund, which is over $20 billion as opposed to $640 million. And I know that all MAGAs aren't very good at math, but I hope you realize $20 billion is actually a bigger number than $640 million. It's almost 20 billion bigger, in fact. So all of these lies that are just, they're not productive. They don't help anybody. They possibly are getting people killed. And their only thing is these states are close, right? North Carolina's close. Georgia's close. And so if we can get enough people convinced that Joe Biden is, this is Joe Biden's Katrina, or I'm sorry, President Kamala Harris, because somehow all of a sudden the vice president is the one that does everything. But so they're all into all of that. I don't, and it's all just for purely partisan political reasons. And, it's sad because I think some of these people, some of these MAGAs that are in Appalachia, they're not going to deny that they're there. But they're going to believe this. They're going to blame it on Biden, and they're going to vote against their own interests. Trump wants to weaponize FEMA. And unless you obey his every command and whim, he will administer FEMA according to how cruel you are to migrants. And if you're not cruel enough to migrants, then you don't get FEMA, And he wants to get rid of the programs that give us warnings about hurricanes and, all this stuff. We don't talk about that stuff, right? I don't know why the media doesn't talk about this stuff, but it doesn't. So he He's going to definitively be worse. This is the guy that in North Carolina, when there was the hurricane hit North Carolina while he was president. Cooper was a Democrat. He didn't like Cooper, so he gave North Carolina only 1% of what they asked for. But yeah, let's blame it on Joe Biden, who, according to every single governor in every one of those states, he had talked to them and approved all the funding he could legally before the hurricane even hit. And all the Republicans have done, other than the ones, to their credit, the governors that are there, and I think some of the congressmen that are there, even the ones that are pretty MAGA, like the guy from Bill Lee or whatever from Tennessee, even he, like at first he was, why hasn't Biden approved anything yet? And it was like approved the next morning. It was like 8 hours it took, which, in DC speed, that's like the speed of light. So even like Bill Lee, even Kemp in Georgia are saying, no, actually he's been doing a really, really good job, and he's been really helping. But you'll never hear Donald Trump say that, because you'll never hear anything true come out of that man's mouth. So anyway, I don't know if you have a way of talking to anybody that's affected, please let them know that FEMA is there to help and to try and cooperate with them. I wish I could. I wish I could tell them. And even if they're going to vote for Trump or whatever, like, I think more of them than he does, and I would rather see them live. It's just makes you wonder where the humanity has gone in our politics, where the people that are actually on the other side care more about your lives than the people you're voting for. I don't understand it. I don't. We had when like about to go into the assassination attempt. I had I donated money to that man's family almost immediately. The fireman that was killed. It's not his children's fault or his wife's fault. They might be MAGA. They might disagree with me. For all I know, they're assholes. A lot of MAGAs are. But I don't care. That man did not deserve to die. His children did not deserve to be fatherless. And his wife did not deserve to be a widow. Like, we only have one side that has humanity here. And I really just wish there are Republicans I disagree with, Republicans I've known a long time, that, at least they have humanity. And so it's like we can agree on some things, like saving people in Appalachia. But I don't know what's happened to that. It's just gotten crazy. So, now let's talk about the lies about the assassination attempt. And there is this ubiquitous alternative fact from the right that somehow Kamala Harris's incendiary remarks about Donald Trump are why he was killed, or why the assassin tried to assassinate him. And there's there is not a single report from anyone that has done any of the investigation that suggests that's true. That like every single FBI agent and Secret Service agent that's looked at it has just said we don't know what his motives are. He didn't leave a manifesto or anything. We don't know why. He didn't have a big political record, right? He was a registered Republican. He gave some money to Act Blue, but it was like $25 he gave to Act Blue. It's not like he gave he gave thousands of dollars. And while they do tend to vote for Democrats, these are like, this group is one of those groups where they go out in the grocery store parking lot and they try to recruit. They just try to get you to register to vote and donate money to get more people to register to vote. And this kid was like 17 when it happened, right? So for all we know, there was just a cute chick, and I mean, I firmly believe this is probably what happened. Some cute girl asked him to sign. He wanted to impress her, so he donated $25. And I don't know if he got her phone number. I don't know if he asked for it, but I'm guessing, like, he's 17. He didn't seem like he was politically active. I don't think he was like, yeah, we need to, keep Congress from the Republicans. Or I don't think that was his motivation there. Otherwise, there might have been like some other things other than just this random donation to a group that he probably never even heard of. So we don't know why, but the Republicans, and I'm not just talking about Donald Trump, like virtually every elected Republican is saying, like, the Democrats keep trying to kill him. Neither person that tried to kill him was even a Democrat, and we don't know why they tried to kill him. But in saying that the Democrats tried to kill him, first of all, they make it seem like any criticism of Trump is like trying to kill him. The second thing is, so he can sit there, he can say that I'm an enemy of the people. He can say he's going to lock up everybody in MSNBC. He's going to lock up judges that, that rule against him. And he can like say just things that are completely authoritarian, like full on dictator. He can say he's going to only be a dictator for a day. And we all know that it's a lie, because it's not going to only be for a day. He's not going to stop. He's not going to be like, oh, well, I just didn't like being a dictator as much as I thought I would. And so he's going to stop being a dictator on you? No, come on. You know what he means. He does this a lot, where he says one thing and then he winks and says, the really, not really. Like, oh, very fine people on both sides. Oh, but I don't mean those guys. And it's like, you mean the ones that you really, really, really appreciate the most? Yeah. The ones that, you told to stand back and stand by. Those are the ones that you didn't mean. The ones that literally came to your support on January 6th and tried to overthrow the government. Those are the ones you mean that you were condemning with a wink and a nod. Yeah, right. Anyway, so he has by far the most incendiary rhetoric, and we know not only the potential of what that could be. Like, people literally went and shot up a synagogue because of what he said. Like, there have been actual mass shootings that the people that did it said he inspired it and quoted him over and over again. And I think it's been at least a couple, right? And then, January 6th. So yeah, let's like maybe not pretend that Kamala Harris is the one that's got all the incendiary rhetoric. And I mean, like, it's not even just the right-wing politicians. It's a lot of the right-wing media. And tacitly, even a lot of the so-called liberal media. They just, they kind of gloss over that. And they're like, when, like, they'll have a Republican on and they'll say, they keep trying to kill Trump. And it's like, wait, what do you mean by they? Like they were together somehow? They knew each other? They coordinated? Are you suggesting that Kamala Harris directed them to do that? That they were motivated by her, inspired by her? And so what do you mean by they? Like, they don't push back against this kind of irresponsible utterance. That could also get people killed. All right. I don't want Donald Trump to get killed. And I don't want his supporters to get killed. But apparently they are fine talking about civil war and killing me if Trump doesn't win. But yeah, it's the Democrats that have to worry about their incendiary rhetoric, because Donald Trump is so incendiary that he nearly got himself killed twice. Like, how do you know that it wasn't what Donald Trump said that nearly got Donald Trump killed? Because I think it probably did. It makes a lot more sense that he did it to himself. Maybe he pissed them off with what he said. Maybe they didn't want him to be a dictator for a day. Maybe the guy that was the second guy that was all, like wanted to go join the Ukraine army and everything. Maybe the guy that was so supportive of Ukraine, maybe his motivation was Trump wanting to pull out of Ukraine or to end support for Ukraine. I don't know. Like, maybe we could ask him that instead of just blaming Kamala Harris. So, and she's had threats on her life too. So how much of that irresponsible incendiary rhetoric? It's okay. It's okay if the black woman gets killed. Is that what you're saying? So, like, this is just, it's another lie, but it's another lie that could get somebody killed. And it's actually, well, somebody already got killed, but, it was before the lie. Then there's this whole thing about, who's having interviews and who's being substantive and who's really, and I'm sorry, this clip that was going around on Twitter with Andrea Mitchell saying that, they think that Kamala Harris is a lightweight and, and maybe it's misogynistic, but that's what, I'm sorry. That's like, Andrea Mitchell, you're the Clarence Thomas of women, you're the misogynist. And when you sit there and you just cater to those misogynistic views and, validate them by repeating them, then, you're just as guilty as they are. Kamala Harris is far more qualified and should be taken far more seriously than Donald Trump. Donald Trump thinks other countries pay for tariffs. He allegedly went to Wharton, and he was supposed, he tells you he graduated from there. But he doesn't know how tariffs work. Tariffs are not paid for by other countries. It's such a ridiculous notion that it's like almost impossible to even understand where he got that notion from. And you'll have people come on and explain away what he meant, but it's not what he said and it's not what he meant. Or they'll talk about, oh, here's an actual good reason to have tariffs, but that's not what he's talking about. Or they'll say, well, Kamala Harris and Joe Biden have tariffs. And it's like, yes, it's not about whether or not tariffs are good or bad. It's which tariffs on what and for what reason. Tariffs are not the best way to raise money. It's not, or to raise federal revenue. They're actually probably the worst way, especially when you're talking about, just coming down on inflation. Tariffs are designed to cause inflation. They are literally, the purpose is to make prices go up. So what happens is, when you have Bob owns an import-export company, and so he imports, 100,000 widgets, and those widgets come in. Before he can access those widgets in the port, before he can send them out, he has to pay the tariff on those. So if they're $1 a widget, he has to pay the U.S. government $20,000 to get it freed from the port. He cannot touch those or access those until he pays that tariff. Now, he can do one of two things, right? He can either raise his prices, or he can just make less money on those widgets. Well, usually they're already kind of as low as they can be. So he raises the price. And then he pays the middleman. Then the middleman has to raise the price, and then the middleman sells them to the marketer, like Walmart or whatever, and then Walmart raises the prices. So eventually, the consumer pays the prices, but initially, the importer does, and the other country has nothing at all to do with it. It never enters the picture. If you have a business from another country, and then, like you might have somebody like Japan has their cars, right? And I think this actually happened in the 70s to where they put tariffs on the cars, right? And to bolster U.S. cars. But then Japan's like, okay, well, we'll lower our prices. So then, they lowered it enough that when the importer combined the price of the car plus the tariff, he's paying the same amount of money as he was before the tariff was placed. So then the company in another country might eat the loss, but the other country does not pay the tariff. Even the company in that other country doesn't pay the tariff. They just, in a sense they do, but the importer is still the one that goes and gives the U.S. government the money. So the person that actually pays the tariff is always the importer. Whether it ends up being the importer ends up eating the loss, or the company ends up eating the loss, or the consumer ends up paying more. Whichever way it happens, the person who pays the tariff is always the importer. And Donald Trump does not know that. And that is like a very, very, very basic economic understanding. So at least that's not directly going to get anybody killed, but it could cause a lot of inflation. And we're talking about inflation a lot. So there's this rhetoric from the right that and from just a lot of people, period, and it is misogynistic. Kamala Harris put out an 85-page economic plan, and I wonder how many of the people that are like, well, she needs to be more specific, how many of them read her economic plan? The ones who read it and thinks it sound, it's people like Mark Cuban, who actually know what they're talking about. Her plan is much more thought out and fleshed out and based in reality than Donald Trump's. Now, you might have people that, will disagree with certain aspects of it or whatever, but it's an actual plan based on how things actually work. Not just, I'm going to replace all revenue with tariffs. And see, it was so great in 1890 when, we had all these tariffs and we went into a major recession. But, the economy was so great. Donald Trump just rants stupidity. And we're just like, oh, okay. Well, we know where he stands. And it's like, no, we don't know where he stands. He stands out in like Fictionville. Like nothing he says is real. Nothing is true. And so at least he has interviews. He doesn't have interviews. Donald Trump has not had an interview this entire news cycle. What he has is props on a stage that just mouth questions for him that aren't even really questions. Well, Donald Trump, why are you the greatest president ever? And why is Joe Biden the worst? That's not a hard-hitting interview. It's like pandering. He has not had a real interview. He's had mouthpieces performing with him on stage. Sean Hannity, and then why won't Kamala Harris go interview with Sean Hannity, as though like Sean Hannity is gonna be fair or honest with her, right? So this idea that he is being really thoughtful in his answers or what. And I mean, we all know that's a joke, right? Like, he thinks batteries make boats sink, and he's afraid of sharks and batteries, and like everything he says is nonsense, just utter nonsense. And so he just, but and he approaches this whole thing the same way he does with mass immigration. Like, where's the study on how mass immigration is going to help the country? Really, you're just going to deport like a fifth of our workforce or whatever? Maybe, I guess maybe a fifth of our workforce is migrants, legal or illegal. But he's talking about shipping off legal immigrants now too. How many of them? I don't know. I guess it depends on how much skin pigment you have based on the way he's talking. Now he's talking about, today he was talking about how some have like the murder gene in them, and I wonder who he's talking about there. I'm pretty sure he's not talking about the ones that are from Finland. Maybe the ones from Congo, he thinks has the murder gene. So he can just say this violent, angry, racist rhetoric, and nobody calls him on it. They just, oh, can you believe Donald Trump said this? But nobody will ever ask him. Nobody will ever ask him. And if they do ask him, they'll ask him in a way to, soften it up. Why should the American people vote for you when your rhetoric is reminiscent of Hitler's? Your own vice president compared you to Hitler. Why is it your own vice presidential nominee compared you to Hitler? Why is it so bad if the Democrats do? Especially when you have repeatedly quoted Hitler or made references to things that Hitler said. Like, what's the difference between you and Hitler? At this point, I don't even know. Just, you got a few years older and you don't have a stupid mustache. You just have a stupid skin tan instead. So, just all the things, all the lies, it's just layered and layered and layered. There's just so many lies. And so, anyway, I think that's all I got for today. Just, watch out for the lies, and, pay attention. Like, when you see them, when you see Republicans lie, look how many in the media will just look past it. And I'm not just talking about Fox News and Newsmax. There are some who will call them on it, but a lot of them won't. Anyway, thanks for stopping by. I'm going to have that whiteboard out later to explain the budget process and the differences in FEMA. But thanks for stopping by. Bye.